My brother-in-law's wedding anniversary dinner was the kind of event my sister-in-law Vanessa planned 3 months in advance, down to the napkin folds. The restaurant was a rooftop place in Charleston with string lights and a view of the harbor, the kind of venue that costs more for the ambiance than the food. There were 14 of us crowded around 2 pushed-together tables. My husband's family, mostly, the Bramwells. I'd married into them 8 years ago and was still, in certain rooms, treated like a guest who hadn't quite RSVP'd. I'm Sloane Bramwell now, though I kept thinking of myself as Sloane Whitfield for the first few years. Like the name hadn't fully taken. In this family, I was the one who worked in something nobody asked follow-up questions about. Risk analysis, I'd say. And people would nod the way you nod when someone tells you they fix copiers for a living. Polite. Done. Next topic. My husband, Marcus, squeezed my hand under the table when we sat down. He always did that at these dinners. A small steadying thing. Like he knew before I did that I'd need it. There she is, his older brother Tate said, when I came back from saying hello to the kids' table, in that tone people use when they've already started the conversation without you, and are now mildly inconvenienced by your return. Not rude, just absent-minded about whether I mattered to the room. His mother, Carol, kissed my cheek and held my face for a second too long. You look tired, honey. Are you sleeping? I'm fine, Carol. You're always fine. She said it like an accusation disguised as concern, then turned back to fussing with the seating cards. I found my spot between Marcus and his cousin Holly, who spent the appetizer course explaining her keto macros in detail I had not requested. I was used to this seat. Not the literal chair, but the metaphorical one, slightly outside the center of gravity, close enough to be included, far enough to never be consulted. The real conversation, as always, started with Tate, because that was how it worked in this family. Tate talked, the table listened, and everyone else filled in around the edges. He ran the commercial side of Bramwell and Sons, the construction company his and Marcus's father had built from a single crew, doing kitchen remodels, into one of the most respected mid-size builders in the Low Country. Their father, Walt, had passed 4 years ago, and Tate had stepped into the chair at the head of both the company and, somehow, every family dinner. I've got news, Tate said, setting his fork down with a small flourish, the kind of move that meant he'd been waiting all dinner to say it. We signed the Ashworth Marina contract this morning. 22 units, full waterfront development. Biggest job this company's ever landed. The table did exactly what Tate expected, wide eyes, a round of congratulations. Carol pressed her napkin to her chest like she might tear up. Marcus's younger sister Briar let out a low whistle. How much are we talking? Marcus asked, leaning forward. 26 million, Tate said, and let that sit in the air for effect. That's incredible, Tate, Marcus said. Dad would be proud. It's what he built this for, Tate said, and for a second something genuine crossed his face before the businessmen came back over it. The catch is the financing gap. Contract signing to first draw is about 5 weeks. We need a bridge, short-term liquidity to cover materials and crew, before the bank releases the construction loan. I set my wine glass down. I could help with that. The table went quiet in the particular way a table goes quiet when someone has said something faintly embarrassing in public. Not considering quiet, confused quiet. Briar recovered first, laughing softly enough that it could pass for something else if I objected. That's sweet, Sloane. I'm serious, I said. How big is the gap? About 450,000, Tate said, his voice gentling into the register he used for children and elderly relatives. But Sloane, honey, this isn't really. We work with commercial lenders for this. Institutional partners. It's a whole structure. I'm aware of how bridge financing works, Tate. I'm sure you are, in theory. He reached for the breadbasket like the conversation was already over. Holly jumped in, not unkindly, just unhelpfully. It's not that we don't appreciate the offer. It's that 450 isn't exactly pocket money. And even if it were, mixing family money with the business gets complicated fast. What Holly means, Carol said, patting my hand like I was the one who needed comforting, is that it's a generous thought, sweetheart, but you'd be in over your head. No offense? I looked at Marcus. He looked at his plate, jaw tight, the way he got when he wanted to say something and had learned, over 8 years of these dinners, that it rarely helped. None taken, I said. Under the table, I picked up my phone and typed 7 words to my advisor, a woman named Priya Okafor, who'd managed my portfolio for 5 years and never once made me explain myself twice. Begin the Bramwell review. You know why. Dinner moved on the way it always did. Tate talked about the marina's projected unit sales. Briar talked about the interior design contracts she was lining up for, the model units. Holly talked about her macros some more. They were warm with each other, genuinely, the kind of family that hugged hello and meant it. I was warm adjacent, tolerated in the way you tolerate weather. Accepted as part of the day, never quite invited to shape it. At some point Tate mentioned their financing partner, a firm that had backed 3 of their last 4 major projects, and the way he talked about them was almost reverent. They don't advertise, don't do interviews. but they've never once been late on a draw in 4 years. Rock solid. My phone buzzed in my lap. Priya had found it already. Your holding company is in their cap table on all 3 deals. Ownership stake ranges from 24% to 38%. They don't know. I turned the phone face down. Sounds like a good partner, I said. The best, Tate agreed. Some people just know how to find the right relationships. He said it without an ounce of self-awareness, without so much as glancing my way, and something in my chest went very still and very quiet, the way water gets right before it starts to boil. Tate's phone rang at 9:45. He almost let it go to voicemail, mid-sentence about the marina's clubhouse design, but something about the screen made him stop talking and answer it standing up. We all heard his voice change before we could make out the words. Marcus and Briar exchanged a look. Carol stopped fussing with her napkin. I picked up my water glass and waited. When Tate sat back down, he looked like someone who'd just watched the weather report. Announced a hurricane was already on the coast. That was our financing group, he said. They're saying there's been a restructuring. They've suspended their position on our active deals. Silence. Real silence this time. What does that mean? Briar asked. It means the money isn't there, Tate said. It means the Ashworth financing doesn't exist as of an hour ago. He sat down heavily. We had a signed commitment letter. Marcus was already on his phone. I'm calling our lawyer. Call the bank first, Tate snapped. I'm calling both. The anniversary dinner dissolved into something else entirely. Phones out, voices low and urgent, the string lights overhead suddenly absurd against what was happening at the table. Briar looked over at me, not accusingly, just searching. Sloan, do you know anything about commercial financing? Like, generally? A little, I said. Tate looked up from his screen, eyes red-rimmed with stress. The fund is called Larkspur Capital Group. Nobody seems to know who actually runs it. It's buried under a stack of holding companies. He rubbed his face. If we can't find the person actually making decisions, we can't even get someone on the phone. I took a breath. I might know something about Larkspur. Every head at the table turned. What do you mean? Tate's voice had gone very still. I've followed them for a while, I said. They're private, deliberately so. But they're one of the better capitalized independent funds in the Southeast. Real estate focused. Some Atlantic Coast holdings too. They don't publish numbers, but their total assets run somewhere around $580 million. How do you know that? Marcus asked, and I could hear in his voice that he already suspected. Research. Nobody researches a private fund that closely without a reason, Tate said, narrowing his eyes. What's your reason, Sloan? I looked at Marcus, then back at Tate. Check your email, I just sent you something. Tate picked up his phone. His eyes moved across the screen once, then again, slower the second time. His jaw tightened, his hand lowered to the table like it had gotten heavy. Read it out loud, I said quietly. His voice came out barely above a whisper. Larkspur Capital Group. Principal ownership summary. Controlling interest 81%. He stopped, couldn't finish. I'll finish it, I said. Primary stakeholder, Sloan R. Bramwell. Total assets under management, $593 million. The table went absolutely silent. Holly made a sound that wasn't a word. Carol pressed both hands flat against the tablecloth, like she needed something solid to hold on to. Briar stared at me with an expression I'd never once seen her wear in 8 years of holidays. You're Larkspur, Tate said. I'm Larkspur, I said. Have been for 3 years and 4 months. How? Tate said. Not even a full question. Just the shape of one. I folded my hands in my lap. This was the part I'd been carrying around for a long time. And not with anger. Something quieter than anger. Something with weight but no heat to it. When I met Marcus, I had $11,000 and a financial modeling tool I'd built on nights and weekends for a hedge fund I was contracting for. They bought the rights 18 months later for just over $1.5 million. I didn't spend it. I invested it. I made mistakes, early. I made better decisions after. I kept going. I looked at Tate. I learned a lot of it watching your father, actually. The way he talked about site value, about timing a build against the market, about which risks were worth taking. He never taught me directly, he didn't think to. But I was paying attention every single time. $590 million, Briar said faintly. 593, I said. And yes, I put it into Bramwell projects, not out of charity. Every dollar went in because the track record and the asset value justified it. You're good at what you do, all of you. I never once doubted that. Then why? Tate started, stopped, started again. Why pull it? Why tonight, of all nights? I looked at him for a long moment. Because tonight, when I offered $450,000 to help close a gap that is, relative to my actual position, the equivalent of someone handing you a $10 bill. You laughed. Tate called it sweet. Holly said I'd be in over my head. Carol said no offense like that erased it. I kept my voice level. I've been quietly keeping this family's company solvent through a recession and 2 supply chain crunches. And tonight, at this table, I was still the wife who does something with numbers nobody bothers to ask about. The string light swayed slightly overhead. Carol put her face in her hands. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said. I need you to actually hear that part. I'm doing it because something needed to change, and I didn't know any other way to make you see it. I've tried in small ways for years. Nobody was looking. Tate lowered his hands. His eyes were wet at the rims, which I had genuinely never seen in 8 years. Sloan, he said. I am so sorry. For what specifically? I asked, not to be cruel, because it actually mattered to me which part he understood. For not seeing you, for assuming. His voice cracked on the last word. I run a company built on judging risk for a living, and I never once thought to actually look at my own brother's wife. That's on me. Entirely on me. Marcus spoke without being asked, his hand finding mine under the table. I've watched this happen at every dinner for 8 years and didn't stop it. I think that might be worse. Holly nodded, quiet for once. Same. I'm sorry, Sloan. Carol reached across the table and laid her hand over mine. She didn't say anything right away. Then, you built something extraordinary, and we made you feel like you had to hide it to be taken seriously at our own table. That's not family. We have to do better than that. I looked around at all of them. Here's what I want, I said. I'll restore the Larkspur position. Full reinstatement, the Ashworth Marina perpetrates seeds on schedule. But I'm done being invisible about it. I want a seat in the actual business conversations, not a silent backer, a partner. I want my name in the room the same way Tate's is, and I want this family to stop deciding who I am before I've had the chance to say it myself. Tate stood, walked around the table, and stood in front of my chair. You've always had a seat here, he said. I just never bothered to pull it out for you. He held out his hand. I shook it. Then I picked up my phone and called Priya. Restore the Larkspur position. Full reinstatement. Add a $6 million draw on top for the Marina's second phase. I paused, listening. Yes, I'm sure. Happy anniversary, everyone. I hung up and actually looked at my family. Really looked. The way you look at people once you've stopped bracing for their judgment. The funding will be back by Monday morning, I said. The Marina's a good project. I would have backed it regardless of tonight. Tate let out a short, startled laugh. You would have? You built something worth backing, I said. I just needed you to know it was me doing it. Later, after the dessert plates had been cleared, and the cousins had wandered off toward the harbor railing to watch the boats, Carol found me at the edge of the rooftop, looking out over the water. She draped her cardigan over my shoulders without asking if I wanted it. I always thought you were sharp, she said quietly. I just never said it right. I said it as worry instead. That's what it sounded like to me too, I said. Worry. That's what love looks like, when it doesn't know where to put itself. She was quiet a moment, watching a sailboat cut across the dark water. I'm going to do better, I mean that. I leaned my head against her shoulder. Just for a second, the harbor lights blurring gold against the black water. I know, Carol. The Charleston night was warm and salt-smelling. The string lights swaying overhead like they'd been waiting the whole evening for things to settle. $593 million, and a seat I'd had to build with my own hands before anyone thought to offer it to me. I'd built the harbor. I'd just been waiting for the rest of them to learn how to sail.